so that's not bad.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee for Monday, April 11th, 2016. I'm Paul Krikorian, Chair of the committee, joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Kretz and Councilmember Blumenfield, and we're ready to begin. We're going to begin today's meeting with general public comment. Do we have any cards for general public comment?
There are no cards at this
General
time, sir.
public comment is closed. Members, I'd like to propose items number 4, 5, 6, and 7 as consent items. There's no objection? There's no objection. Do we have cards on those matters?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, public comment on those matters is closed and they are approved on consent. That will bring us to item number 3. And when we conclude item number 3, we'll go, after that item, we'll be able to take our closed session. So item number 3, please.
Item number 3 is a City Administrative Officer report relative to the appropriation of an additional $28 million in Municipal Improvement Corporation of Los Angeles financing for the Asphalt Plant Number 1 Replacement and Modernization Project located at 2484 East Olympic Boulevard. This report was also referred to the Public Works and Gain Reduction Committee.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. Raul Mendoza with the Office of the CAO.
Mahmoud Karimzadeh, Bureau of Engineering.
So, as you know, Street Services has operated the Asphalt Plant 1 since about 1947. So, obviously, over a period of 70 years, the equipment starts to deteriorate. And so right now, the goal of the project is to really replace the existing asphalt plant with a new, more modern plant. One that'll increase production capacity from the current level of about 175,000 tons per year to about 700,000 tons of asphalt per year. So BOE worked very quickly, expeditiously, working with consultants to prepare the 30% design documents for the bid and award process. And in less than a year, we were able to advertise this design build project. And then we received bids last month. So based on the low bid, the consultant fees, as well as contingency, BOE is projecting a project budget of about $38 million. So with that, you know, the goal is to award the project in June or possibly July, but hopefully in June. Completion of construction in August, somewhere in the summer of 2018, and then followed by a 3 or 4 month commissioning period after that. So based on the project estimate of $38 million, we know that in a prior year adopted budget, Council and Mayor authorized $10 million in MICLA funding to get the project going. And so the report before you today, we're requesting an additional $28 million in MICLA funding for the project.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit to the payback on this, cost efficiency, how increasing capacity to that extent will be of economic benefit to the city?
Yeah, definitely. So right now the city, asphalt plant, the city has 2 asphalt plants. The area covered by asphalt plant 1 requires about 600,000 tons of asphalt per year. So I mentioned that the plant is able to currently produce about 175,000 tons of asphalt per year. So it needs to use outside vendors to get that other 425,000 tons of asphalt. So when you look at the cost of outside vendors, as well as the city's cost to produce asphalt in-house, that total of 600,000 tons can be produced at about, it costs about $28 million to the city per year. So based on the new asphalt plant and the new efficiency of the asphalt plant, we're projecting about $34 per ton or $20 million per year. So we're saving about $8 million a year.
Okay. Very good. Anything else before we go to questions? Members, before we go to questions, we do have 2 cards which I'd like to take before we have our discussion. The first is Timothy Butcher, followed by Rudy Guevara, or Guerrero, I'm sorry. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. I'm a heavy-duty truck operator. I work for resurfacing, and I work at Asphalt Plant 1. I've worked there for 17 years. We need this. We absolutely need this. I could equate it to trying to take out a sidewalk, a 100-foot sidewalk with a sledgehammer, or maybe go in with like a tractor or something and dig it all up and out. We'd be so much more efficient, so much more productive. These gentlemen speak very eloquently to the cost savings, to the benefits, that aspect. For the workers, nothing's more frustrating than being on a job in the middle of it and something breaks down. And now we got to wrap everything up, try and come back the next day. We're inconveniencing the neighborhood. We feel for the people. We want to get the repaving work done. We know it's a quality of life issue. We know it benefits industry, individual people out in the street. The three watchwords that we have are quality, timeliness, and efficiency in the Bureau. We've always maintained quality. This will allow us to be more efficient and more timely with our work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee and chair. My name is Rudy Guevara. I'm the SCIU Worksite Organizer. And definitely the time's now, and we're here. And we've been asking for this for a couple of years, and I'm happy to see that it's actually getting done. It's going to benefit not only the workers, it is more safer environment, but definitely the public. It's going to be more efficient for the city, cost effective. It's going to generate revenue back into the revenue stream. This is great. You provide efficient output with the new asphalt plant. You have fewer breakdowns with the new asphalt plant. You'll result in less money for repairs. You'll help maximize the use of labor. And last, you have a safer environment for the workers. That's a win-all for everyone. Thank you for this.
Terrific. Thank you. Mr. Blumenfield.
Excited about this. It seems great, and want to see it move forward. A question on the financing side of things. It saves about $8 million a year. Is that right?
That's correct.
And yet, but we're financing it over a 30-year period.
I think we're going to do it over 20 years, and it's going to cost about $3 million a year in debt service.
Is there a way, or would it make sense to, pay, if we can get $8 million a year, theoretically, if we were to put that savings aside, we could pay it off in 4 years. Would that not make sense, or is it?
Natalie Brill at the CAO's office. So the way that we usually finance our infrastructure projects, we use commercial paper first. And so until the project is actually completed, which I believe is a 2-year construction, the first 2 years, we will start paying off the debt in commercial paper, and that pays below 1%. So once that is done, then we'll put it into long-term debt for 20 years. If you want to accelerate the debt, that's something that you'll have to add into the budget if that's what you want to do. But usually that's the way the programs will work, is that we first put it into notes until the construction is completed, and then we put it into long-term debt.
So where's the savings going?
The savings comes as the general fund. This is a general fund project. So the general fund is paying for it through debt, and the savings will just come into as revenue to the general fund. So it's we don't segregate it.
Right.
It comes straight in, and that's what pays the debt. You could say that it's paying for debt service, right? That's a decision the council will have to make.
Okay, but I guess that's a decision we can make this upcoming year. I mean, we may choose to refinance this. It seems like, well, saying
In 2 years.
less than 1% is what they price it. Okay, and then on the emissions, the net change in emissions, and it's may get related to the finance question too, in terms of whether or not there's any cap and trade potential money here. Are we seeing a net savings or a net loss in emissions with this new?
Councilman, I have environmental management person from our bureau. I asked her to come and address that.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Martin. I'm with the Environmental Management Group. My understanding is that the project is being designed to be under the emissions for the cap and trade program. This is something that is going forward, and we are working with the AQMD. And right now, we are expecting to meet the requirements to be below. If that were not to occur, the facility will continue to be monitored, and if that were not to occur, then we may need to get into the program. But as of now, my understanding is that the facility has been designed with the performance criteria to remain below.
Below what?
Below the thresholds to not to trigger the cap and trade program.
Not to trigger a cost in cap and trade. What I'm wondering though is, I would imagine we're actually saving emissions because you got less truck trips. If you compare our emissions now, not just for what this plant is doing, but compared to the emissions that we have to buy all that asphalt from somewhere else right now, and they make it the traditional way with no recycled material, and we have to truck it in. So there's a lot of
Yes. However, as we looked at all the calculations, and our air quality expert work with Air Quality Management District, we are increasing the capacity. Although we are indeed rerouting, et cetera, the capacity and the operation of the plant, the daily max is being increased as well. So because of the way the plant is going to operate, and because we are increasing and asking to be permitted for up to 750 tons per year, actually 700,000 tons is what we have been discussing with AQMD. Because of that, we are anticipating not exceeding the thresholds to be in the cap and trade, but we don't have any numbers as to whether there will be a net savings at the moment. This is something that is being worked with AQMD permitting.
Right. The reason, Councilman, is since the production of asphalt will be increased threefold almost at the site, that's what is happening.
Yes.
We are very much below the threshold per ton. However, since we have increased compared to the existing facility, since we increased the production, the amount of pollution is going to increase, but per ton we are very much below the threshold.
because of the recycling element adds to that too, right?
Yes, the recycling element right now at the site is somewhere between 10 to 20%. That is going to increase to 50%. So that will help not only the quality of the product, but also in the cost as well.
I guess I'm glad that we're not triggering the threshold with all the increased capacity. And I was wondering if there was any way to go even a step further by getting credit for all of the asphalt we're not going to buy in the future, and not to truck in the future, that would, get us, net us a savings of some sort. But it seems like maybe that's...
Maybe I'll try to answer that. I'm Hugh Lee from the Bureau of Street Services. So as it turns out at this point, when the plant had new equipment 30, 40 years ago, it was the last time that the equipment was switched out, the plant was able to produce approximately 584,000 tons per year. But because of the number of breakdowns and the unreliability, the current production is down to 175,000. So this is kind of like just the last legs of our, the 1974 Pinto is kind of where we're at. Where we're also at the 175,000 tons is we're also marginally meeting the low emitter classification for air quality management. So what that is the threshold where once you start crossing that line, you're on the verge of becoming into the cap and trade arena. So we're still being able to avoid it. Now, one of the major improvements with this new equipment that's being proposed is we will be able to increase the production from 175,000 tons to 700,000 tons and still remain under that same threshold of emissions. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it in one sense, the new plant would be roughly 1/3 the emissions that we have right now. So because we're expanding that volume, we didn't have any net savings in emissions because we're going to use it all.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Kretz.
So why don't they count the offset, though? Because we're obviously using a lot less asphalt from more polluting sources. Why are we only counting what's at the plant and not what we're not using at the same time?
The use of the recycled materials primarily helps in helps offset the use of virgin materials, brand new aggregates, et cetera. So the mix by moving up from 15 or 20% or 10% of RAP towards 50% means we are much more immune to price swings. We're much more immune to having to locate and source additional asphalt oils as far as an aggregates. So those items, it kind of, I don't know if there's a direct link to savings, as there's a kind of inherent savings that when you're using less raw materials, you would end up being better off. So those things haven't been fully quantified.
But that's not even what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, what about the stuff that we were buying from other people that are produced with less recyclable materials and presumably more pollution? How does that not count against it? So it only counts what we're doing on site, but the fact that we're now not buying all that other material, why do we not get a benefit from what we're not buying?
Well, the AQMD, when they're doing their calculation for whether we fall into this program or not, they are looking at the delta. They are looking at the change of the capacity increase versus what's currently being produced, and they are taking into consideration various issues, and it has to do with the equipment and the emissions of the equipment as well. So there are various things that the AQMD has to consider. I understand you're looking at the overall savings with everything that's occurring, but they're looking at the equipment as a source of emissions, and because of that, specific items related to certain specific equipment, we don't meet that criteria that in order to qualify. So we have to look at the overall, the equipment, the savings. We are looking at the net, at the trips, everything together. And they are doing that within the permitting regulations, the 1401 regulations.
So we're essentially causing close to the same amount of pollution that we were causing when we were hardly producing any asphalt.
Because you have to look, that's exactly, you're still looking at the entire volume and what's being produced. They look at the max theoretical, and then they look at the delta. They're looking at the permitted capacity for the facility.
Those other companies are still going to produce the asphalt. They're just not going to sell it to us.
And they're the ones that bear the burden for the carbon. So we're the purchaser of an item, not the manufacturer of the asphalt. So it's the asphalt manufacturing company that would bear the burden of the carbon emissions of the manufacturing process. It doesn't. I'm assuming that doesn't pass through to the purchaser then.
That's right.
Although one would assume they're now producing quite a bit less because they're not producing for our
or they're selling it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. But one of the other assessments that was in the discussion is within the region, there is a relatively fixed amount of demand for asphalt materials. So what this does mean is that the other, perhaps more polluting plants may not be able to sell any additional. So.
And we're not credited for that benefit.
But we're not,
but it is a good thing. So when this project got approved in 2006, why was it not done then?
Yeah, so I think since that time, there's been some discussion internally about how to deliver this project, whether we would go out to bid as a design build, which is what we've eventually chose to do, or just purchasing equipment and putting it down on the ground without stabilizing the foundation. So I think what we're presenting today is kind of a more effective look at being able to deliver a project that's sustainable for the cost.
Yeah, I think I've been pushing for this since I got here in mid-2009, and most of what we were told in the ensuing years was we couldn't afford to do it, because this was put forward as one of the solutions to our shortfall, because you save $8 million a year, whatever it was back then, and yet amazingly we're told every year we can't afford to do it, which never made any sense. Doesn't make any more sense today. It makes sense to do it, and it made sense to do it 6 years ago and probably 10 years ago. But at least we're doing it now. We can save a lot more asphalt and recycle it. So it makes perfect sense. Now, what are we doing at Asphalt Plant 2? Are we in the same situation as with this asphalt plant, and should we be looking at doing the same thing there?
Yeah, and again, Plant 2 is definitely within the plan, but we're waiting to see what comes out of Plant 1 before we start looking at that. Again, what I'm saying is, depending what is the final reliable production that can be gotten from the new equipment, that'll tell us what is our flexibility for the Plant 2. But all the planning forces that were used for Plant 1 will take a look at Plant 2 immediately after this project's moving forward.
And Plant 2 is the one out in the valley, right?
North Hollywood.
Yeah, I took a look at that years ago, and it also looks like it's held together with duct tape. So
yes, it is.
I think it's more than ready to be redone similarly, and if there's any way to encourage us to take a look at that as well, I would try to nudge us in that direction, and hopefully not a 10-year process, hopefully a couple-year process, so we can use even more recycled asphalt and save the city more money.
Just one question. Is there a limit, CAO, on how much MICLA financing we can do?
Yeah. I'll defer to Natalie again on this one.
We all do.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Is there a limit on how much MICLA financing we can do?
The city has a 6% limit on general fund debt. This doesn't put us over the top.
How close are we getting, though?
We're at about 4.6% right now.
Okay. Thanks.
But related to that, and following up on Mr. Blumenfield's point, I love spending MICLA when we can, obviously, because it's not directly and immediately out of the general fund. But this is one of those things where we're realizing such an annual savings that it just kind of seems to make financial sense to me to dig into our pockets and pay cash instead of financing it, and then realize the full benefit of those savings rather than having to worry about the float on it, not to mention our debt capacity. So I get that for the first couple of years we're doing the low interest commercial paper route. Within that 2 years, I think we should really take a hard look. We'll go ahead, as far as I'm concerned, we should go full force, not delay this at all. Let's just go ahead, approve the MICLA financing. But at some point within those next 2 years, let's take a look at whether there's a more cost-effective way to do this and still preserve some of our debt capacity as well for other things. Because, I mean, off the top of my head, I think it would make more sense to take a loan from the reserve fund than to use MICLA when we're saving $8 million a year and we can pay this debt off in 4 years.
One of the things that we've done in the past is left it in commercial paper and used the savings to pay it off every year, right? You don't have to refund the debt after 2 years. That's our usual practice, is what I'm saying.
I see.
Our usual practice is as soon as the asset has been completed or bought, in case of equipment, you buy it and then you refund it out. In the case of construction, you wait till the construction is done, then you refund it out so you have a complete asset to finance against. But, that's really a policy call on your end.
No, I get it.
You can leave it in CP until you pay it off.
I get it. I just want to put on your radar that sometime within those next couple of years, let's come back with some recommendations about possible ways that we can fund this that might be more cost effective and more beneficial to the general fund. So we need to use 600,000 tons of asphalt out of this plant, and it has a capacity for 700,000. So is there any opportunity for using that excess capacity to provide asphalt to third parties?
Actually, 650,000 ton, that's the
I'm sorry, what?
650,000 pound, that's the permit we're getting from AQMD. I'm sure that the department has to answer this, the Bureau of Research Services, but there will be opportunity to use the excessive product of the asphalt plant and sell it maybe to other government agency.
Yeah, the report indicates that the area of the city covered by Asphalt Plant 1 requires 600,000 tons a year, and with a capacity of 700,000 tons, we could cover Burbank and Glendale too, and maybe Santa Clarita, I imagine, and maybe a whole bunch of third-party contractors, or private contractors as well. So if we can save them some money and make a profit for the city at the same time, which being a public entity we would be able to do without a private profit incentive and so on, I would certainly think that would be worth taking a hard look at, as long as that excess capacity, as long as we're making enough on that excess capacity to justify the additional wear and tear on the plant and the diminution of its value from, running it to capacity all the time. Mr. Kretz.
A follow-up question on that. So we have a little excess during the area covered by Plant 1. Do we contract in the area covered by Plant 2 for some shortfall in asphalt, and can we use it there instead to reduce our contracting?
At this time, the two plants, both Plant 1 and 2, we already share whenever one has a planned maintenance act. So I think what the chair is saying is that if we have a capacity in addition to that, and I think that's something certainly the city council would need to provide direction for.
Well, yeah, but to this point, I think we're also making money if we're using our excess capacity in the other area rather than contracting out in that other area. So it's savings rather than profit, but you're right. That's if we can shift the
Right. And we will be,
load.
We regularly do all those things. At this point, what we're saying is the new Plan 1 will give us flexibility that we haven't had in a long, long time. So.
That's great. Well, it's been a long time coming. Congratulations. This is all really good news. Anything else, members? Okay. Without objection, it'll be the action of the committee to approve the recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay.
For the record, Mr. Chair, this item is scheduled for council on Tuesday, April 12th, tomorrow.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. Thank you all very much. That takes us now to our closed session items. Do we have any cards on items 1 or 2?
There are no cards on either item.
Okay. Public comment on our closed session items is closed. And City Attorney, have a preference as to priority? Does it matter? All right, members, we are back in open session, and there being no other business before the committee, we are adjourned.